Hey, it's Steve here, and today I'm joined by Jane Aherne, a nutritionist, and we're going to be speaking about immunity, specifically in the kind of sports nutrition world and athletic populations. And that doesn't always have to be athletes, it can just be people that are really into their training and I guess juggle work life and training existence as well at the same time. So do you want to kind of kick things off and just give me an idea of like some of the common things that we might see from an immunity perspective with certain training populations maybe?
Okay. So, I mean, despite the fact that usually athletes or even recreational athletes, people who exercise tend to be healthy, we have this perception, it's not always the case. If we're talking about endurance athletes, there's something called the open window theory, which is during bouts of endurance exercise, the immune system becomes suppressed slightly, and then you're more susceptible to getting infections that tend to be upper, like coughs, colds, things like that. Once that happens, as everyone knows, then your training is jeopardized. You need to rest, you need to recover, and what's important as well, and what's key, is to make sure you fully recover before you go back into training. Other sides of that, going in training in gym environments, a lot of people, a lot of touching of things and hands not being washed and coughing and sneezing and sweat. It's just an environment where you're more likely to pick up an infection. And so in that respect, everyone, but athletes or people training for events, do need to prioritise their immune function and how it works, and there's ways we can benefit that. One way would be to ensure that you are having a healthy, balanced diet and getting all the nutrients you need, macro and micro in particular. I'm also a big fan, and I think you are as well, of prebiotics and probiotics and their sort of role in immune function, and making sure that it's top notch, that you've got all the kind of immunoglobulins that you need in order to fight off infections and not get ill. And if you do, that you will recover perhaps maybe more quickly than if you were not taking them. Other areas are even things like personal hygiene and making sure at least you wash your hands. You can't always be responsible for other people, but washing your hands in gym environment, always washing your hands before you eat and after. Those are sort of key things that it might sound very basic, but it is important. If you're with a team and you have been sick, that you make sure you fully recover before you go back into that environment, because once you've had it, if you pass it on, then you're kind of putting other people, everyone else then is at risk, and that's not going to be good, and you're not going to be very popular if you do that. So
no, exactly. So you said something there about it's more so with endurance athletes that you get this sort of open window theory where you get an immune suppression, and I know certainly from working with just general populations as well, what you'll tend to see is immune suppression of immunoglobulins in the gut, because of chronic stress that people experience in their life as well. So would it be that particularly those populations of people that have high stress outside of their training, plus then do a form of training that is maybe more endurance based and higher intensity endurance based work, really put themselves at risk of immune compromisation?
Absolutely. I mean, if you go into work, you've been, commuting there, stressful enough, you get in, your job is stressful, you have meetings, commute back home, more stress, and then you think, I need to fit in my run, and then you go straight out into the elements, and, your body's running down. Yeah, chances are you're going to get sick.
It's a bit of a recipe.
And then the illness itself causes stress. I need to get back to work. I need to get back out and train. I think I feel better. I'm going to go straight back into it. And you're just causing a cycle of constantly jeopardizing the immune function and your well-being and your... Yeah,
because the inclination then is to, I need to pick up on the training I missed out on, so I'm going to train harder when I get back.
Yeah.
So you're either compensating that way, or like you said, you go back too soon and you're not giving the body that adequate rest and recovery that it needs. And I think the rest and recovery is probably the key thing here, right? Is that
Absolutely.
the training program needs to be designed in a way that it allows for that rest and recovery. And actually, you've got to design your life around the ability to ensure that you're getting adequate rest and recovery. And then the nutrition has to be optimizing that rest and recovery, like you're saying, the right level of like sort of just calories, sufficient level of calories coming in, the right types of macronutrients coming in based upon whatever your training performance is, and then the right level of micronutrients coming in, which is then going to be the quality more so of food that people are going to be taking on. Sleeps, I think, is a really interesting one as well. Like, what's your opinion on sleep and immune health?
If you're not getting enough sleep, 100% you are compromising immune function.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
I know that sounds, again, basic, but we need our 8 hours, definitely, every single night. People will say, well, I can't, I mean, especially nowadays, there's a trend even with sort of working in other countries on different time zones, Skype meetings, things like that. And yes, I mean, if that's, how you need to work, but you need to sort of work in ways around it. I mean, napping during the day isn't always something I would necessarily want to tell people to do, but if you're not getting adequate sleep, you are on a dangerous path. And it's incredibly necessary. And I think making sure that everyone needs a bedtime routine as well, athletes and everybody, away from even things like social media or late night meetings, as I say, with countries and different things like that. So, that's really, really key.
Yeah, definitely. I think I read somewhere there's something like a 60% reduction in natural killer cells in the body on one bad night, like one sleep, like less than 6 hours. So like even just a single night's sleep can have a profound effect on immunity the next day following after as well. And I think then if you're then kind of doing that on a day-to-day basis, plus you maybe trying to train and push through it a little bit more, like one, you're probably suppressing your immune system. Two, actually you're probably even compromising things like growth hormone, which are going to allow you to recover properly anyway. So you're compromising performance in that way at the same time. I think sleep's always a really interesting one to do. And it can be, I know when I've worked with athletes in the past, it can be really challenging because they might fly out to competition, a week before, or even some days a day or two before, and then they're training or performing in a different time zone, and they're having to kind of adjust around from that. So having a pre-bed routine even of going through the processes of relaxing and doing, taking your pillow with you or whatever it might be to try and support sleep in the best possible way, because it might not be perfect, but support it in that best possible way will certainly help them. I think the challenge more so from an immune perspective probably is that what do you do though day in, day out with your training? Because you can probably get away with so much like an acute change in sleep health or, environment or whatever it might be, but if for the 3 months before that, you've been training, not sleeping, not eating well, and then you then suddenly go off and you jump on a plane, you're exposed to increased bugs, and now your sleep gets compromised.
Exactly.
It's like boom, 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 next thing, then eventually that athlete just gets knocked off their feet.
Exactly. I mean, as you said, you can prepare if you know that, okay, when you travel to this country, if you don't sort of incorporate ways to kind of manage your sleep, it's going to feel like you've just got up in the middle of the night and have had to do the event, because that could be the likelihood. It could be this time at home and that time over there. But it is more challenging in a way if people have, as you say, a lot on, the work, family life, juggling everything, and then also trying to train and doing events abroad because it's for almost fun. But really what they're doing is completely compromising everything, and further down the line you don't know what that could eventually have a domino effect and lead to. And so it's so important to try and be aware of what you're up against and be aware of the importance of looking after yourself throughout that time. Know when to stop, know when to rest, know what to nourish your body with to make sure that it's top notch or as much as possible. So if you're an athlete or just someone that is really into their training, things that we definitely want to put in place are
ensuring that you're getting your adequate sleep, so that kind of 7.5, 8 hours a night, and really ensuring you've got a window of sleep there that allows you to be able to do that, which means a pre-bed routine that allows you to calm down as well, I guess, at the same time, not just kind of jumping in bed and
it's 11
must get to sleep now. So there needs to be that kind of pre-bedtime routine and then supporting sleep. Nutrition, looking after the calories, macros, micronutrients, even looking at things like nutrient timing, I would guess, to some degree, in terms of digestive health, that type of thing. I think we spoke about it in a previous video where I've had a client that just changing his nutrient timing or his timing of his food had a profound impact on his digestive health, which then had a profound impact on his immune health and allowed him to fight and do all the training that he needed to do. So we've got sleep, nutrition, stress, just general stress as well. How do we actually manage that? So, I mean, assuming what sort of tactics might you use for someone that's, got a lot going on, I guess?
Finding time for yourself. I mean, things like mindfulness meditation are wonderful ways of just kind of bringing the sort of sympathetic nervous system, sort of relaxing it and resting and kind of bringing the mind back to focus on something else rather than all the problems or situations we have going on. And also, I think it's important for everyone at some stage during their day or weekly routine to find something other than just, I mean, we're talking about, work, eat, sleep, train. If that's kind of just a constant cycle with no kind of other things that are taken away from that, where you just are having fun or relaxing or doing something that you enjoy that's removed from that, so to just sort of pull you away and have some downtime, I think is really, really important. And as I say, all those things incorporated then will sort of lead to better performance in every area.
I speak to some clients about like yin and yang. So yang is much more sort of like, high energy, and a lot of clients that come in to see me are like high energy, want to train, want to perform, want to work hard, everything's up there. But you have to create that balance somewhat. Even if their personality type is in that area, there still has to be a balance that creates slightly more of a whole person, and that will create a better result. So it's then almost scheduling into their diary. So I'll use with my clients, we'll go, I actually want you to have mini holidays in the day. So the same way that some people would schedule in X amount of holidays per year, it was a time of rest and recuperation and relaxation, is that we have to even think about that on a more micro basis as well. Is that during my day, can I take 15 minutes to go outside, have a walk, not be on social media, not be on those things, just to step away from that a little bit, maybe just be in the open air or go for a walk around the park or whatever it might be. Some people it might be mindfulness, some people it might be taking a walk, but something a bit more yin to just kind of calm things down a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think there's people coming in, as you say, they're very high energy, and sometimes the word like mindfulness meditation just seems like no, that's too far for me, that's not what it is. It doesn't have to be, okay, you're going to sit down and I mean, you can, as you say, put your favourite music on that's either upbeat or relaxing and just go for a walk rather than kind of sprinting or running. It's a more natural movement for the human body and to do, our running or sprinting, or that puts us into the adrenaline.
Fight or flight response.
Exactly. It's the kind of, so the sort of more natural response and just the natural activity of just walking, particularly outside, in green spaces, so long as you're safe. And as I say, listening to even a podcast that's funny and making you laugh and just taking you away, even for a half hour, an hour would be better, but for any time you can, it just is going to calm everything down. And as I say, the stressors will be there waiting for the next day or whenever you come back to them, but just allowing yourself that time to say, I'm stepping away from this now, because otherwise I'm just going to jeopardize my health and well-being.
And what it actually does tend to do with people is that when you optimize the ability to step away and maybe incorporate some more time of rest and relaxation or improve sleep, is they tend to then become more resilient to stress anyway, so they don't respond in quite the kind of the more stressed people become, it tends to quieten down the part of the brain that allows you to rationally think about things. So you become more reactive and responsive. So actually then the way you're existing is creating more and more stress, and you're becoming more and more reactive, which is then creating more and more stress, and it cycles like that. So these interventions allow someone to actually rationalize things a little bit easier, and they don't respond in quite the same way. So actually just reduce their stress that way. And even like sleep and stress reduction as well, the productivity that people then tend to experience afterwards, actually increases anyway. So sometimes the stress is not getting things done, but half the time we actually just do a really rubbish job of doing things because we're not being that productive with stuff. So that movement away from, whether it's work stress or sometimes even stepping away from training and doing less training, actually makes that training more productive as well. Partly it could be the physiological rest, but also psychologically, like you might be much more motivated going into your training because you've been able to just calm the body down at the same time.
No, absolutely. And I think it's having those sort of key little strategies and methods of sort of, as you say, you won't always be able to pull yourself away from an hour to go out walking or that, or even just take 5 minutes just to kind of pull back from this stressful situation, whatever it is. Even the same, if you kind of wake up suddenly when you're about to go to sleep and think, oh no, I never did this. And rather than seeing it as this big stressful problem, just kind of recognizing it's like, this is just a situation, and kind of the reality around that, and kind of like, what's the worst case scenario, what's the best case scenario, and the reality is it's probably somewhere here, maybe let's not be as stressed. And so finding those kind of key ways to kind of calm yourself down in the moment, and then continue on, whether it's into your training or into work or into anything like that. And I think, as you say, then you become more productive because you're living more in the moment and in the reality rather than in what's outside of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a really important point to kind of finish on, I guess, is that it can all feel quite overwhelming at times. It can feel like you can't make that change, and by adding something in, it's just going to create more turmoil. And I think the role of what we would do is to actually just help someone with that process. Let's have a look at your whole picture. Let's have a understand your health, your history, what's going on at the moment, your lifestyle, your stresses, and let's see whether we can actually help with your scheduling or help with something like that, which is then going to reduce some of the stress, so that we can then prioritize some of these areas that are going to support your recovery, optimize your training, and eventually what we started this subject on, which is supporting your immune system as well. So the goal, I guess, is by working with us, it allows us to basically help you manage this. And stop it from being so overwhelming, and then to start to create a bit of a strategy, a little bit of a plan, in which case then you then start to feel comfortable and more confident in your approach, and hopefully then physiologically start to feel better, perform better, not getting sick all the time, all of those things. Pretty much that's it. Good stuff. So if that sounds like something you want some support with, feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll speak to you again soon.